Hi everyone, it's Paul here from the Magdalene Centre. Today I want to talk about the Sun's passage through Libra, starting on the 22nd of September at the autumn equinox and finishing on the 23rd of October when the Sun moves on into Scorpio. Now, at the autumn equinox, this is symbolic of the balance between light and dark, and Libra is also about bringing that balance between parts of ourselves that we consciously acknowledge and recognise, which is like the light part of ourselves, and the shadow, which is the part of ourselves which remains unintegrated so far, and which usually becomes known to us through other people, because Libra rules the other. So this is the first 6 signs of the zodiac are subjective. They're parts of ourselves that we are aware of, that we recognise them as within us. Libra, on the other hand, is the first of the 6 collective signs, and Libra highlights to us parts of ourselves which are still part of who we are, but we don't recognise them initially until we see them in other people. Because Libra is the mirror of the self. If Aries is the self, Libra is the mirror. If Aries is the cause and the origin of actions, Libra is the effects of them and any karmic repercussions. Now, just to be clear here, when I say karma, I'm not talking about this karma in terms of a sense of punishment. Karma is just the balancing out of actions so that we understand what are the effects of our actions, so that we can then learn how to modify our actions to become more conscious, so that we reap a different result at the end of the day. So if we keep pursuing the same actions, we'll keep getting the same results until we change the cause, i.e. our actions. So with Libra and the Sun's passage through here, part of Libra's job is shadow work, because we tend to think of Libra in terms of harmony, social ease and balance and relationships, but in order for us to achieve the highest end of Libra, we also need to do shadow work, which is when we see other people mirroring back to us parts of ourselves that we don't like. Initially, it's a very human thing to do, to project it onto other people and just assume that there's something wrong with them, that's who they are. But when we look close and ask, why does this person irritate us? And we look to the behaviour of the person as opposed to the person as a collective identity, we may soon realise that what this person is actually doing is reflecting back to us a part of ourselves which is currently unconscious, but is a part of our shadow that we're not particularly happy with, and so far kept it in the dark. But by virtue of encountering people who annoy us, they may well be showing us parts of ourselves that we're not particularly proud of. Now, this is generally with people. If sometimes irritation with people is perfectly valid because they're doing something wrong, but if it's a case of we meet with someone and we get this instinctive gut reaction against them without really knowing why, they haven't done anything to us yet, then chances are the person is reflecting back to us a part of our own unconscious, and we need to ask ourselves why. What is it this person represents that my ego is reacting against? Because once we acknowledge it and understand that part of our own shadow, and we not only acknowledge it, we accept it, the person stops having any power over us. They no longer have that power to rob us of that peace of mind that we want, because that person is no longer highlighting something within us that we haven't dealt with. We're now aware of it. And the more we do this, the more we use our relationships as an opportunity to understand ourselves better through realising what parts of ourselves other people are showing us. And it's not necessarily bad stuff. Some people, when we meet an individual who their presence inspires us, quite often what that person represents is a higher manifestation of a part of ourselves that is currently lies as an unrealised potential within us. So Libra isn't just about people who get on our nerve and a pain in the neck. It's also about people who inspire us and show us what we could potentially achieve if we actually did the inner work of elevating the functions of parts of the mind which we haven't trained yet in order to make them better. Now, in terms of Libra's function with harmony, more often than not, what we try to do here is we try to create that harmony on the outside first, and we find ourselves in a constant juggling act, constantly having to change our expressions for different people in order to maintain this peace, and in the process we end up living through a very shallow persona, which isn't who we are, isn't doing anyone else a favour, because we're not actually showing them who we are, we're just doing something to please them so that we get validation of them. What we need to do is stay true to ourselves, but when we create harmony on the inside first, so through the shadow work we become aware of the darker sides of us, and we integrate it with the light side, so we bring the two parts into balance. This then creates inner peace and harmony between the two sides, so we're no longer at war within our own minds, and because we're no longer clashing inside, that inner peace starts to radiate outwards. It's a gradual process, but the key point is that instead of focusing on creating harmony outside of ourselves through moderating our own self-expression to please people, what we need to do is turn inwards instead and figure out how can we create harmony between these two parts of our own mind so that they're no longer clashing. Because when we create that inner peace, it then radiates outwards and invites other people into that sense of peace, and that way truly harmonious relationships can come about, because by creating harmony on the inside first, that then allows true harmony, where we're not trying to moderate ourselves or live through a false persona. We're being our authentic selves. Ideally the other person would be doing the same, so they're creating harmony on the inside. This allows for social ease. Neither person is worried about being near someone going to cause a problem for us. If we're creating peace on the inside, then what other people do or how they express themselves stops having any power over us and stops creating internal negative reactions, because we're not trying to project our own stuff onto that person as a convenient cop-out. We're doing the inner work, we're transforming our own shadow through acknowledging it and bringing acceptance to it rather than judgment and greater fear, which only enhances the shadow. And this harmony can then radiate outwards and create true peace. Libra is also to do with justice, as well known, especially social justice. Libra, being an air sign, often has strong connection with social matters, and during this time we may find ourselves more aware of injustices going on around us, and a tendency can be to start judging things too much. But one thing we also need to look at is where are we ourselves responsible for injustices. Now, this isn't about going on a guilt trip. No, we do not want to do that, because that's just going to make things worse. But if we can acknowledge where we come into any given situation and how we may be, usually unconsciously, adding to this sense of imbalance between two sides, we can then adjust our attitudes accordingly so that we're doing things based on mutuality. So we recognise that we're all a part of a greater whole, and that no action that we take is isolated, it has effects. And if we're aware of any possible injustices which may inadvertently be creating, we can then modify our actions. We don't modify who we are, we don't try to change ourselves, we engage in some kind of guilt trip or self-flagellation, but we can become more aware of our actions and modify our actions instead, so that they take into account other people, but we don't become people-pleasing in the process. We don't try to do things based on what another person wants us to do, because otherwise we're not being true to ourselves. No matter what we do, we must always remain true to our core sense of self. Giving ourselves up to bring about peace is not a lasting solution. All that leads to is manipulation, whether that be us trying to manipulate other people by trying to look like a good person, or other people manipulating us because they know that we'll just roll over and be a doormat. So there needs to be a balance here, which is a sign of Libra coincidentally. We need to maintain touch with our core sense of self, but also recognise ourselves in other people. And by honouring that sense of self, so we see each other as mirrors of each other, and not someone who's there, who's a bad person, someone to manipulate. We see that we are all interconnected, and we see that by working in relationship with one another, we can achieve social ease, and we no longer need to fear other people if we can bring tolerance and acceptance to our relationships without being abused or taken advantage of. Because if we have that inner harmony within us, then we do not need to people please in order to feel accepted. We're strong enough within ourselves, yet we do not lose touch with our relationships. We honour our relationships, we honour the self, and we honour one another. Because if we can accept each other as we are, instead of judging, then a lot more light can occur in the world, because by bringing balance inside ourselves, we can create true balance in our relationships, true harmony and true peace. And this can create a domino effect, because the more of us operate from a position of creating peace through manifesting inner peace first, which leads to outer peace, the more peace we bring to the world, and the more people will be drawn towards that energy. Because everyone says they want peace, but we have to model it first. We can't expect other people to do that work for us. We have to create it on the inside first. But when that peace is achieved, we can achieve true harmony within our relationships. And instead of experiencing a load of karma in relationships, it becomes true love. But everything is about giving and receiving. We acknowledge that we can't just keep taking or doing things for our own benefit. We also have to give to each other, and also receive from each other when actions are done with love. So during this time, we need to learn to radiate love for ourselves, first of all, to create that inner balance, and then outwards to the world. Because the more we have that love for the self, the more it can build up like a tank full of energy, to the point that it overflows and spreads outwards. Because everything in life is interconnected, no matter how much our ego may try to deny otherwise. And the more we can recognise our interconnection with one another, and the fact that true growth and maturity comes through relationship to one another, and this isn't just romantic relationships, we're also talking about our friendships, businesses, and obviously partnerships. But the more we can, the whole idea of marriage that's associated with Libra, if we create the marriage on the inside between the light and the dark, so the two sides are in balance with one another and true equality, that same level of equality that we want on the outside can manifest, because we create it on the inside first. But that's the main thing we need to remember with Libra, is as within, so without. If we try to create it on the outside, we'll always be running around desperately trying to people please and keep other people happy at the expense of ourselves. If we create it on the inside, however, then our peace of mind is not contingent upon other people. It's there regardless, and it radiates outwards to the world around us. And we can model loving relationships where we're self-empowered through creating inner balance, and we can empower each other through accepting each other as who we are, rather than thinking we've got to change each other and to meet our own standards. Each one of us is a unique individual, and to apply a certain standard to everyone doesn't work, because we all operate differently. We're all different individuals, yet we are all children of God. Every single one of us is a divine spark of the Creator, and the more we can acknowledge the divine spark within each other rather than looking at the egoic expression, the more the ego can be tamed, and the more we can see each other's soul self and acknowledge and appreciate the higher self of each individual. And the more of us that do this, the more the collective ego weakens, and the manifestations of the ego, like conflict, strife, stress, ill health, the more these manifestations of the collective ego can diminish, because we recognize each other as souls, as each one being a spark of the divine. And by doing this, we recognize that we're interconnected, and by having a healthy relationship with ourselves and each other, we can bring true peace, as long as that peace is on the inside first. I hope that's useful gauge for what the Sun in Libra can bring. It may bring you much growth through bringing inner peace to yourself, and may that inner peace radiate outwards to bring much needed peace to the world. Many blessings. Take care.